there is a kind of silence that most people are afraid of, not because it is empty, but because it reveals the truth. The truth that you don't feel lonely because you are alone. You feel lonely because you don't know how to be with yourself. 1. Loneliness is created by the mind. Loneliness is not simply the absence of people, it is the absence of connection within yourself. Many people believe that if they just had more friends, more conversations, or more attention, the feeling of emptiness would disappear. But if that were true, then no one surrounded by people would ever feel lonely. Yet we see the opposite every day. People sit in crowded rooms, scroll through endless messages, laugh with others, and still feel a quiet emptiness inside. You can be surrounded by others and still feel empty. And you can sit alone in silence and feel completely at peace. This shows us something important. The feeling of loneliness is not created by your surroundings. It is created by the way your mind interprets your situation. The environment may be the same, but the experience is completely different depending on your inner state. The difference is not in the environment. The difference is in the mind. The mind has a habit of creating stories. It constantly judges, compares, and labels your experience. It tells you that you are missing something. It tells you that everyone else has someone, and you do not. It tells you that being alone means you are less important, less valued, or less complete. Over time, these thoughts become so familiar that you stop questioning them. You begin to accept them as truth. But these are not truths. They are mental patterns. They are learned beliefs that have been repeated so many times that they feel real. The mind says, I need someone to feel whole. It says, if I am alone, something must be wrong. And without realizing it, you start to believe this narrative. This belief becomes the source of your discomfort, not the actual situation of being alone, but this is an illusion. You were never incomplete. You were never lacking. Before the world taught you to depend on others for validation, you existed as you are now, whole and complete. The feeling that something is missing is not a fact. It is a conditioned response created by the mind's habit of seeking external fulfillment. When you begin to observe your thoughts, instead of blindly following them, something shifts. You start to notice how often the mind creates unnecessary suffering. You realize that loneliness is not something happening to you. It is something being produced within you. And once you see this clearly, you begin to separate yourself from those thoughts. The moment you stop believing that your happiness depends on others, you create space within your mind. That constant pressure to be connected, to be noticed, to be validated begins to fade. In its place, a quiet sense of ease starts to appear. You begin to feel lighter, not because your situation has changed, but because your relationship with your thoughts has changed. This is the beginning of inner peace. It is not loud or dramatic. It is subtle and calm. It is the realization that you are enough as you are, even in complete solitude. And when this understanding deepens, being alone no longer feels like emptiness. It starts to feel like freedom. 2. Attachment creates suffering. Attachment is one of the deepest reasons why people struggle with being alone. It is not just about liking someone or caring for them. It is about depending on them for your emotional stability. It is when your peace, your happiness, and even your sense of worth become tied to their presence, their attention, and their behavior. At first, attachment does not feel harmful. It feels comforting. It feels like connection, like closeness, like meaning. You feel happy when they are around. You feel secure when they respond. You feel important when they give you attention. But slowly, without realizing it, this comfort turns into dependence, and dependence turns into suffering. When your happiness depends on someone, your peace becomes fragile. Every small change in their behavior begins to affect you. If they reply late, your mind starts to overthink. If they seem distant, you feel anxious. If they leave, you feel broken. Your emotional state rises and falls based on something you cannot control. This is the nature of attachment. It gives you temporary comfort, but it takes away your inner stability. You are no longer in control of your peace. Instead, your peace is controlled by someone else's actions, moods, and choices. And because people are constantly changing, your peace becomes unstable. Buddhist teachings explain that attachment is one of the main causes of suffering, not because relationships are wrong, but because dependence creates fear. When you become attached, you begin to fear loss. You fear being ignored. You fear being replaced. You fear being alone. And this fear creates a constant tension within you, even when everything seems fine on the surface. You start to hold on tightly. You try to control outcomes. You try to make people stay. You adjust yourself just to keep the connection alive. But the more you try to hold on, the more pressure you create, both within yourself and within the relationship. And eventually, this pressure leads to disappointment or pain. True peace cannot exist where there is constant fear of loss. This is why attachment leads to suffering. It is not the presence of people that causes pain. It is the expectation that they must stay, behave in a certain way, or fulfill your emotional needs. When reality does not match these expectations, suffering begins. Learning to be alone means learning to loosen this attachment. It means understanding that people can be part of your life, but they should not be the foundation of your peace. You can care for someone deeply, but still remain emotionally stable if they are not there. You can enjoy someone's presence without making it a requirement for your happiness. This shift is not about becoming cold or distant. It is about becoming balanced. You move from dependence to awareness, from needing to appreciating, from holding tightly to allowing things to flow naturally. When you release attachment, something powerful happens. The fear begins to fade. The constant need for reassurance disappears. You no longer feel anxious about losing people because your sense of peace is no longer built on them. You start to experience relationships differently. You connect without pressure. You care without losing yourself. You allow people to come and go without it disturbing your inner state. And most importantly, you become comfortable in your own presence, because now your happiness is no longer borrowed from others. It is created within you. This is the freedom that comes from letting go of attachment. It does not remove love from your life. It removes suffering from your mind. 3. Solitude is a powerful teacher. Solitude is often misunderstood. Many people see it as emptiness, as something to avoid, as a space where nothing exists except silence and isolation. But in truth, solitude is not empty. It is full. It is a space where you finally meet yourself without distraction. Most people spend their lives running from this moment. They fill every second with noise, conversations, entertainment, and endless scrolling, not because they truly need it, but because they are uncomfortable being alone with their own thoughts. The moment silence appears, the mind becomes restless. Old memories surface. Unanswered questions rise. Emotions that were ignored begin to speak, and instead of listening, most people escape again. But what if this discomfort is not something to run from? What if it is something to understand? Solitude becomes powerful the moment you stop resisting it. When you sit alone without distraction, you begin to notice how your mind actually works. You observe your thoughts instead of being controlled by them. You start to see patterns that were invisible before. The way you overthink, the way you attach meaning to small things, the way you create worries that do not even exist in reality. This awareness is the beginning of transformation, because you cannot change what you do not see. In solitude, there is no one to impress, no one to validate you, no one to distract you. It is just you and your inner world. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, even heavy, but if you stay with it, something begins to shift. The noise in your mind slowly starts to settle. The constant need for stimulation begins to fade, and in that quiet space, clarity begins to appear. You begin to understand yourself on a deeper level. You start to recognize your true desires, not the ones influenced by others, but the ones that genuinely belong to you. You see your fears more clearly, and instead of avoiding them, you learn to face them with calmness. You begin to question the beliefs that have shaped your life. This is why solitude is such a powerful teacher. It shows you the truth about yourself, without filters, without distractions. Buddhist monks intentionally spend long periods in silence and isolation, not because they are disconnected from the world, but because they are trying to understand it at a deeper level. They know that the mind is always active, always reacting, always searching, and the only way to truly understand it is to observe it in stillness. When you practice solitude, you begin to detach from constant external stimulation. You realize that you do not need noise to feel alive. You do not need constant interaction to feel meaningful. There is a quiet strength that develops within you, a stability that does not depend on anything outside. Over time, solitude stops feeling like something you have to endure. It becomes something you value. You start to appreciate the silence. You begin to enjoy your own presence. Your thoughts become clearer. Your emotions become calmer. Your reactions become more controlled. You also develop a deeper sense of independence, not the kind that pushes people away, but the kind that allows you to stand strong on your own. You no longer feel the urge to chase people just to fill a void. You no longer tolerate things that disturb your peace just to avoid being alone. Instead, you choose your connections wisely. You interact from a place of strength, not from a place of need. And this changes the quality of your relationships. They become more genuine, more balanced, and less driven by fear or dependence. Solitude also teaches patience. In a world where everything is fast and immediate, being alone slows you down. It allows you to think deeply, to reflect, to understand things without rushing to conclusions. You become less reactive and more aware. And this awareness brings a sense of calm that cannot be easily disturbed. Perhaps the most important lesson solitude teaches is this: you are not incomplete. You do not need constant company to feel whole. You do not need external noise to escape your thoughts. You are capable of sitting with yourself, understanding yourself, and finding peace within your own presence. This realization changes everything, because once you are comfortable in solitude, you are no longer afraid of being alone. And when that fear disappears, you gain a kind of freedom that most people never experience. Solitude is not a punishment. It is not a sign that something is missing in your life. It is a gift, a rare opportunity to build a deeper relationship with yourself. And the more you learn from it, the more you realize that being alone is not something to fear. It is something that can strengthen you, guide you, and ultimately bring you closer to a lasting sense of peace. 4. Your peace should not depend on people. One of the most subtle reasons people suffer in silence is because their peace is not truly their own. It is borrowed. It rises and falls depending on how others treat them, respond to them, or choose to stay in their lives. At first, this may seem natural. We are social beings, and connection feels important. But when your inner state becomes controlled by external behavior, you lose something essential. You lose stability. If your peace depends on people, it will always be uncertain. People change. Their moods change. Their priorities shift. Sometimes they are present, sometimes they are distant. And if your emotional state is tied to these changes, you will constantly feel unsettled. One moment you feel calm and secure, the next moment you feel anxious, confused, or hurt. not because something truly meaningful has changed within you, but because something outside of you has shifted. This creates a life of emotional dependency. You begin to check your peace through others. You wait for their messages, their attention, their approval. You feel good when they are close and feel uneasy when they pull away. Without realizing it, your mind becomes trained to seek reassurance from outside instead of grounding itself within. Buddhist teachings remind us that true peace cannot come from something that is constantly changing. If you build your happiness on something unstable, your happiness will also be unstable. This is why relying on people for inner calm leads to suffering. It is not because people are harmful, but because you are placing your peace in something that cannot consistently hold it. When you start to observe this pattern, you begin to understand how much energy is wasted trying to maintain emotional security through others. You replay conversations in your mind. You analyze their behavior. You wonder what changed, what went wrong, what you could have done differently. This constant mental activity drains your peace. It keeps you trapped in a cycle of overthinking and emotional dependence. Learning to be alone means breaking this cycle. It means slowly bringing your attention back to yourself. Instead of asking, "Why are they acting this way?" you begin to ask, "Why is my peace affected by this?" This shift is powerful. It takes you out of external focus and brings you into inner awareness. You begin to see that your reactions are not caused by others, but by the meaning your mind gives to their actions. When someone is distant, your mind might interpret it as rejection. When someone does not respond, your mind might interpret it as neglect. These interpretations create emotional responses, but they are not absolute truths. They are simply thoughts. As you become aware of this, you start to loosen the grip that others have on your emotions. You realize that you do not have to react to every change. You do not have to chase clarity or force connection. You can allow situations to exist without letting them disturb your inner balance. This does not mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop losing yourself in the process of caring. You can still value relationships, but you no longer depend on them for your sense of peace. You learn to stand on your own emotional foundation. There is a quiet strength that develops when your peace comes from within. It is not loud or obvious, but it is deeply stable. You become less reactive. You do not rush to respond to every situation. You do not feel the need to explain yourself constantly. You become comfortable with silence, both within and around you. When your peace is internal, you stop seeking constant validation. You no longer need others to confirm your worth or reassure your existence. You understand that your value is not something that needs to be proven or recognized by others. It is something you carry within yourself. This understanding changes the way you interact with the world. You become more selective with your energy. You do not engage in unnecessary conflict. You do not stay in environments that disturb your calm. You do not tolerate behavior that pulls you into emotional instability, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. You also become more present. Instead of constantly worrying about what others think or feel, you bring your attention back to the moment. You focus on your breath, your actions, your own state of mind. This presence creates a deeper sense of calm. It allows you to experience life without being overwhelmed by external fluctuations. Over time, this way of living becomes natural. You no longer feel the need to control outcomes or hold on to people for stability. You allow relationships to flow without attaching your peace to them. If someone stays, you appreciate their presence. If someone leaves, you remain steady. This is what it means to have independent peace. It is not isolation. It is not indifference. It is balance. It is the ability to stay grounded within yourself, regardless of what is happening around you. Perhaps the most powerful part of this lesson is the freedom it brings. When your peace no longer depends on people, you are no longer controlled by fear. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of being alone. These fears lose their intensity because your stability is no longer tied to them. You begin to live with a sense of calm confidence, not because everything in your life is perfect, but because your inner state is no longer easily shaken. You trust yourself. You trust your ability to remain steady, and in that state, you discover something deeper than temporary happiness. You discover a lasting peace that does not come and go, a peace that remains with you, whether you are surrounded by people or sitting alone in silence. This is the kind of peace that cannot be taken away, because it was never dependent on anyone to begin with. 5. Enjoying your own company is true freedom. There is a quiet shift that happens in a person's life when they stop fearing their own presence. At first, being alone feels uncomfortable. The silence feels heavy. The absence of conversation makes the mind restless. You look for something to fill the space: music, social media, messages, anything that can distract you from that feeling. But this discomfort is not because being alone is painful. It is because you are not yet familiar with yourself. You have spent so much time connecting with others that you have not learned how to connect with your own mind. And when that connection is missing, solitude feels empty instead of peaceful. Enjoying your own company is not something that happens instantly. It is something you develop slowly through awareness and practice. It begins when you stop trying to escape yourself and start paying attention to your inner world. You begin to notice your thoughts without judging them. You observe your emotions without immediately reacting to them. You sit with yourself, not as an enemy, but as someone you are learning to understand. At first, this can feel unfamiliar. The mind may resist. It may try to pull you back into distractions. It may tell you that you are wasting time, that you should be doing something more exciting, that you need people to feel alive. But if you remain patient, something begins to change. The silence that once felt uncomfortable starts to feel calming. The need for constant stimulation begins to fade. You realize that peace does not come from noise or activity. It comes from stillness. And in that stillness, you begin to feel more present, more aware, more connected to yourself. This is where true freedom begins. Because when you enjoy your own company, you are no longer dependent on external conditions to feel okay. You do not need constant attention to feel valued. You do not need to be surrounded by people to feel complete. Your sense of well-being becomes self-sustained. Most people spend their lives chasing freedom in the outside world. They believe that freedom comes from having more choices, more options, more connections. But real freedom is much simpler. It is the ability to sit alone and feel at peace. It is the ability to exist without needing anything else to complete you. When you reach this state, your relationship with people changes. You no longer approach others from a place of need. You approach them from a place of choice. You are not looking for someone to fill a void. You are simply sharing your presence with them. This creates healthier, more balanced connections. You also become less afraid of losing people. Because your happiness is no longer dependent on them, their absence does not create the same level of fear or pain. You appreciate their presence when they are there, but you remain steady even when they are not. This stability gives you a quiet confidence that cannot be easily shaken. Enjoying your own company also allows you to discover who you truly are. Without the influence of others, without the need to adapt or impress, you begin to see your authentic self more clearly. You understand your values, your preferences, your natural way of being. You no longer feel the need to constantly adjust yourself to fit into different situations. This self-understanding brings a deeper sense of clarity. You make decisions more easily. You trust your own judgment. You stop seeking approval for every choice you make. And this independence strengthens your sense of identity. Another important aspect of enjoying your own company is the ability to use your time meaningfully. When you are comfortable being alone, you can focus deeply. You can reflect, learn, create, and grow without distraction. Your energy is not scattered. It is directed inward, allowing you to build something valuable within yourself. You also begin to experience moments of simple joy that do not depend on anything external. A quiet walk, a calm morning, a moment of stillness, these become meaningful. You are no longer searching for constant excitement. You find contentment in simplicity. This does not mean you reject the world or isolate yourself completely. It means you no longer rely on the world to feel fulfilled. You can engage with others when you choose to, but you are equally at ease when you are alone. This balance is what creates true emotional strength. Over time, the fear of loneliness disappears, because you realize that being alone does not mean being empty. It means being with yourself. And when your relationship with yourself becomes strong, supportive, and understanding, there is no longer a reason to feel lonely. Enjoying your own company is not about avoiding people. It is about building a foundation within yourself that remains steady regardless of who is present in your life. It is about creating a sense of peace that is not easily disturbed. When you reach this point, you stop chasing connection out of fear. You stop holding on to people out of insecurity. You begin to live more freely, more honestly, more peacefully. And this is the essence of true freedom. Not the freedom to escape life, but the freedom to be at peace with it, even in complete solitude. 6. Let go of the need for validation. One of the deepest reasons people struggle with being alone is not because they truly need others, but because they have been conditioned to seek approval. From a young age, many are taught to measure their worth through external responses. Praise makes them feel valuable. Criticism makes them feel inadequate. Attention becomes a form of reassurance. And slowly, without realizing it, their sense of self becomes dependent on how others see them. This creates a hidden attachment. It is not always obvious, but it shapes the way you think, act, and feel. You begin to adjust your behavior to gain acceptance. You speak in ways that will be liked. You present yourself in ways that will be approved. You avoid saying or doing things that might lead to rejection. Over time, you are no longer living as your authentic self. You are living as a version of yourself that seeks validation. At first, this may feel rewarding. When people appreciate you, acknowledge you, or give you attention, it creates a temporary sense of happiness. It feels like confirmation that you are enough. But this feeling does not last. It fades quickly, and then the mind begins to seek it again. You look for the next moment of approval, the next sign that you are valued. And this cycle continues. The problem with this cycle is that it gives control of your emotions to others. Your mood depends on their reactions. Your confidence depends on their opinions. Your sense of worth becomes something that can be raised or lowered at any moment by external factors. This creates instability. You feel good when validation is present, and you feel empty when it is absent. Buddhist teachings point out that anything dependent on external conditions cannot provide lasting peace. If your happiness relies on approval, it will always be uncertain, because approval itself is uncertain. People have different perspectives, different moods, and different expectations. What satisfies one person may not satisfy another. Trying to meet all these expectations is not only exhausting, it is impossible. When you begin to see this clearly, you start to understand the cost of seeking validation. It takes away your freedom. You become careful with your words, cautious with your actions, constantly aware of how you are being perceived. This creates tension in your mind. You are no longer relaxed in your own presence. You are always performing, always adjusting, always seeking reassurance. Letting go of the need for validation is not about rejecting others or ignoring feedback. It is about shifting your source of worth from outside to within. It means recognizing that your value is not something that needs to be confirmed by others. It is something that exists regardless of external opinions. This shift begins with awareness. You start to notice when you are seeking approval. You observe the moments when you feel the need to be seen, to be appreciated, to be acknowledged. Instead of acting on that need immediately, you pause. You question it. You ask yourself why you need this validation and what you believe it will give you. Often, you will find that the desire for validation comes from a deeper feeling of insecurity or doubt. The mind believes that external approval will remove this feeling, but in reality, it only covers it temporarily. The underlying insecurity remains, waiting to surface again. When you stop chasing validation, you begin to face these deeper feelings directly. This can feel uncomfortable at first, because you are no longer avoiding them, but it is also the beginning of real growth. Instead of seeking reassurance from others, you start building confidence from within. You learn to accept yourself without needing constant confirmation. As this inner confidence develops, your relationship with yourself changes. You become more comfortable with your thoughts, your decisions, and your presence. You trust yourself more. You rely less on external opinions, and this creates a sense of stability that is not easily disturbed. You also become more authentic. Without the need to please others, you can express yourself more honestly. You are no longer shaping your identity based on what others expect. You are simply being who you are. This authenticity brings a sense of ease. You no longer feel the pressure to maintain an image or meet expectations that do not align with your true self. Another important change is that you become less affected by criticism. When your worth is defined internally, external opinions lose their power. You can listen, reflect, and learn without feeling personally attacked. You understand that feedback is just perspective, not a definition of your value. Letting go of validation also strengthens your ability to be alone, because now your sense of worth does not depend on being seen or acknowledged. You do not need constant interaction to feel important. You do not need attention to feel complete. Your presence alone is enough. This does not mean you stop appreciating connection. It means you no longer depend on it. When someone values you, it is appreciated but not required. When someone overlooks you, it does not shake your sense of self. You remain steady, grounded in your own understanding of your worth. Over time, this creates a deep sense of freedom. You are no longer controlled by the need to impress, to please, or to gain approval. You act based on your own values, not on external expectations. You make choices that align with your inner truth, not with what will be accepted by others. This freedom is quiet but powerful. It allows you to move through life with clarity and confidence. You are not constantly looking for reassurance. You are not waiting for someone else to define your worth. You carry that understanding within yourself. And when you reach this state, being alone no longer feels like a loss. It feels natural, because you are no longer seeking something from others that you have already found within yourself. This is the essence of letting go of validation. It is not about isolation. It is about independence. It is about realizing that your value is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It is something that exists within you, steady and unchanged. When you truly understand this, you stop chasing approval. You stop depending on attention. You stop measuring yourself through others. And in that moment, you reclaim your peace. Because the less you need validation, the more free you become. 7. True happiness comes from within. At the center of all these teachings lies one simple truth. Happiness is not something you find in the world. It is something you cultivate within yourself. Most people spend their lives searching for happiness outside, through people, achievements, possessions, or experiences. And while these things can bring moments of joy, they cannot provide something lasting, because anything that depends on external conditions will always change. People come and go, situations rise and fall, success appears and disappears. If your happiness is tied to these things, then your happiness will constantly move with them. One moment you feel fulfilled, and the next moment you feel empty again. This is why so many people feel like they are chasing something they can never fully hold on to. Buddhist teachings offer a different perspective. They teach that true happiness does not come from acquiring more, but from understanding the nature of your own mind. It comes from learning how to create a stable inner state that is not easily disturbed by what happens outside of you. When you begin to look inward, you start to see how much of your experience is shaped by your thoughts. The same situation can feel peaceful or stressful, depending on how your mind interprets it. The same moment can feel full or empty, depending on your level of awareness. This shows that happiness is not in the situation itself, it is in the way you relate to it. The mind has a tendency to seek fulfillment in the future. It says, "I will be happy when this happens," or "I will feel complete when I have that." This constant searching creates a sense of lack. You feel like something is always missing, something is always needed before you can truly relax and feel content. But this way of thinking keeps happiness out of reach, because there will always be something more to want, something more to achieve, something more to fix. The mind never stops searching unless you consciously bring it back to the present. True happiness begins when you step out of this cycle, when you stop chasing and start observing, when you stop trying to complete yourself through external means and begin to understand that you are already whole. This does not mean life becomes perfect. Challenges still exist, emotions still arise, but your relationship with them changes. You no longer depend on everything being ideal to feel at peace. You develop the ability to remain steady even when things are uncertain. This inner stability comes from awareness. The more you observe your thoughts without getting lost in them, the more space you create within your mind. In that space, reactions become less automatic. You are no longer controlled by every passing thought or emotion. You gain the ability to respond instead of react. With this awareness, you begin to notice how often the mind creates unnecessary suffering. It replays the past, it worries about the future, it compares, judges, and resists what is happening. All of this activity pulls you away from the present moment, which is the only place where peace can truly exist. When you bring your attention back to the present, something shifts. The mind becomes quieter. The constant noise begins to fade. You start to experience moments of simple presence, where nothing is missing and nothing is needed. These moments may seem small at first, but they are the foundation of lasting happiness. Another important aspect of inner happiness is acceptance. Much of human suffering comes from resisting reality, wanting things to be different, wishing situations had turned out another way, holding on to expectations that are not being met. This resistance creates tension. It keeps the mind in a state of conflict. Acceptance does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It means seeing things as they are, without adding unnecessary struggle. It means understanding that life will not always align with your preferences, and learning to remain calm despite that. When you practice acceptance, you release a large amount of mental pressure. You stop fighting reality and start flowing with it. This creates a sense of ease that allows happiness to emerge naturally rather than being forced or chased. Gratitude also plays a powerful role in inner happiness. The mind often focuses on what is missing, what is lacking, what is not enough. But when you consciously shift your attention to what is already present, your perspective changes. You begin to see that there is more completeness in your life than you previously noticed. This shift in attention does not change your external situation, but it changes your experience of it. You move from a mindset of lack to a mindset of appreciation, and this appreciation creates a deeper sense of contentment. As you continue this inner work, you begin to feel less dependent on external sources of happiness. You still enjoy experiences. You still value relationships, but you no longer rely on them to define your state of mind. Your happiness becomes something you carry within you, not something you search for outside. This independence creates a profound sense of freedom. You are no longer controlled by circumstances. You are no longer constantly chasing or avoiding. You are able to remain centered, regardless of what is happening around you. Over time, this inner happiness becomes more stable. It is not affected by small changes or temporary situations. It remains steady, like a calm presence in the background of your life. Even when difficulties arise, you are able to return to this calm more easily. You also begin to experience life more fully. Without the constant need for things to be different, you are able to engage with the present moment more deeply. Simple experiences become more meaningful. Ordinary moments feel richer. There is a quiet joy in just being, without needing anything extra. This is the kind of happiness that Buddhism points toward. Not a temporary emotion, but a lasting state of inner peace. A state where you are not dependent on external conditions to feel complete. A state where you are comfortable within yourself, even in silence, even in solitude. When you reach this understanding, being alone no longer feels like something to fear. It becomes a natural state where you can connect with yourself more deeply. It becomes a space where your mind can rest, where your awareness can expand, where your peace can grow. And in that space, you realize something important. You were never lacking. You were never incomplete. The happiness you were searching for was never outside of you. It was always within, waiting to be recognized. This realization changes the way you live. You stop chasing happiness and start living from it. You stop depending on others for fulfillment and start creating it within yourself. You move through life with a sense of calm confidence, knowing that your peace is not something that can be taken away. Because true happiness does not come from what you have. It comes from how you exist. It comes from the clarity of your mind, the openness of your awareness, and the stability of your inner state. And when you understand this deeply, you no longer ask how to be happy when you are alone. You simply are. So if you find yourself alone, do not rush to escape it. Do not fill the silence just to avoid feeling it. Sit with it. Understand it. Listen to what your mind has been trying to tell you all along. Because the truth is, you were never afraid of being alone. You were afraid of facing yourself. But the moment you stop running, the moment you learn to sit in your own presence without needing anything else, everything changes. The emptiness you once felt turns into space. The silence you once feared turns into peace. And the loneliness that once controlled you slowly disappears. Because now, you are no longer searching for someone to complete you. You have found that completeness within yourself. And when you reach that point, you don't feel alone anymore. You feel free.